Elena Rodriguez stepped off the transport shuttle and felt her breath catch in her throat. The Centauri trade station stretched out before her like a massive metal city floating in space. Through the huge windows, she could see the distant stars and the colorful ships of dozens of alien species coming and going. This was her first big assignment as a human ambassador, and she was both excited and nervous. The station was bigger than anything she had ever seen. Corridors stretched in all directions, filled with beings from across the galaxy. She saw the tall, blue-skinned Altarians with their 4 arms moving gracefully through the crowds. The small, furry Kepler traders scurried between the larger species, their tiny voices chattering in rapid clicks and whistles. Even the massive rock-like Titan diplomats were there, their heavy footsteps making the metal floors vibrate slightly. Elena pulled her travel bag higher on her shoulder and followed the signs toward the human diplomatic quarters. She had spent 3 years training for this moment, learning about alien cultures and trade agreements. Her job was to help improve relations between Earth and the Galactic Council. It sounded simple enough, but she was already feeling overwhelmed by the sheer size and complexity of the station dot as she walked through the main corridor. Elena noticed something that made her stop and stare. Along the walls were large displays, showing galactic maps and trade routes. She had seen similar maps during her training, but seeing them here in person was different. Each map showed the same thing, a detailed view of the galaxy with all the major civilizations marked clearly. But there was something strange about them. Every single map ended at human space. Beyond the borders of human territory, there was nothing, no star systems, no trade routes, no unexplored regions marked for future expansion. Just blank space, as if the galaxy simply stopped existing past the edge of human space. Elena frowned and moved closer to one of the displays. She touched the screen and tried to zoom out to see more of the galaxy, but the map would not show anything beyond human borders. It was as if whoever made these maps had decided that nothing existed past human space. Strange, isn't it? A voice said behind her. Elena turned to see a middle-aged man in a human military uniform walking toward her. He had short gray hair and kind eyes, but there was something in his expression that made her think he knew more than he was saying. "I'm Commander Jake Sullivan," he said, extending his hand. "I run the human operations here on the station." "You must be Ambassador Rodriguez." Elena shook his hand and nodded. "Yes, that's me. I was just looking at these maps." "They seem incomplete." Jake's smile became a little forced. "Oh, those old things. They're just basic trade route displays. Not meant to show everything." "But why do they all end at human space?" Elena asked. "Surely there are more star systems beyond our borders?" Jake looked uncomfortable. He glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then stepped closer to Elena. "Look, Ambassador, there are some things that take time to understand about how things work out here. The galaxy is a big place, and not all of it is suitable for trade or exploration. Some regions are just off limits." Elena felt her curiosity growing stronger. Off limits to whom and why? "That's something we can discuss later," Jake said quickly. "Right now, let me show you to your quarters. You have a busy schedule ahead of you." As they walked through the station, Elena kept noticing more strange things. Whenever she passed a group of aliens discussing trade routes or exploration, they would suddenly go quiet if they saw her approaching. The conversations would resume only after she had passed by, and always in hushed tones. Jake led her to a comfortable set of rooms in the human section of the station. The walls were decorated with pictures of Earth and various human colonies, making the space feel more like home. But Elena's mind was still focused on the maps and the strange reactions she had seen. "Your first official meeting is tomorrow morning," Jake said as he handed her a datapad with her schedule. "You'll be meeting with representatives from the Galactic Council to discuss new trade agreements. Nothing too complicated for your first day." Elena nodded, but she was only half listening. "Jake, can I ask you something? How long have you been stationed here?" "About 15 years, he replied. "Why do you ask? In all that time, have you ever wondered what's beyond human space? I mean, the galaxy is huge. There must be more out there. Jake's expression became very serious. Elena, let me give you some advice. There are certain questions that are better left unasked out here. The galaxy has been peaceful for a long time, and that peace depends on everyone respecting certain boundaries. Some of those boundaries are physical, and some are about what topics we discuss. Elena stared at him. Are you telling me there are things I'm not allowed to talk about? I'm telling you that there are things that are better left alone, Jake said firmly. Trust me on this one. Focus on your official duties and you'll do fine. After Jake left, Elena sat alone in her new quarters staring at the datapad. The official schedule was full of meetings and ceremonies, but none of it seemed as interesting as the mystery of the blank maps. She had always been curious by nature, and being told not to ask questions only made her want to ask them more. The next morning, Elena attended her first Galactic Council meeting. The council chamber was impressive, with representatives from dozens of species sitting in a large circle. Each species had their own unique appearance and customs, but they all seemed to work together smoothly. The meeting was about establishing new trade routes between human space and the Kepler systems. Elena listened carefully and took notes, but part of her mind was still thinking about the maps. During a break in the discussions, she decided to test something. I was wondering, she said to the Kepler representative, a small furry being named. Zix, are there any opportunities for trade beyond human space? I noticed the maps don't show much detail about that region. The effect was immediate. Zix's large eyes went wide, and he began making nervous clicking sounds. The other aliens in the room suddenly went quiet, and Elena could feel them all staring at her. The maps show all relevant trade information, Zix said quickly. There is no need to discuss other regions. Elena noticed that the tall Altarian representative, who had been friendly and talkative before, was now avoiding eye contact with her. Even the massive Titan diplomat seemed to have moved slightly away from her position. But surely there are other civilizations out there, Elena pressed. The galaxy is huge. There must be unexplored areas worth investigating. Some areas are not suitable for exploration, the Altarian representative said stiffly. The Galactic Council has determined that current trade routes are sufficient for all member species. Elena felt like she was hitting a wall. Every question she asked was met with the same type of non-answer. It was as if everyone had agreed beforehand to avoid discussing anything beyond human space. After the meeting ended, Elena walked back to her quarters feeling frustrated. She had come here to learn about the galaxy and help improve human relations with other species, but instead she was finding more questions than answers. The blank maps, the uncomfortable reactions, and the refusal to discuss certain topics all pointed to something bigger than simple trade boundaries. Elena sat down at her desk and pulled up her personal communication system. She needed to find someone who might be willing to give her real answers. Tomorrow, she would start her own investigation into why the galactic maps ended at human space and why no one seemed willing to talk about it. Elena woke up the next morning with a plan. She needed to find someone who might be willing to talk about the mystery of the blank maps. During her morning coffee, she reviewed the station directory on her datapad and found what she was looking for. Dr. Amy Carter was listed as a human xenorchaeologist, working in the research section of the station. Elena made her way through the winding corridors to the research deck. The area was quieter than the main trading floors, with fewer people and more laboratories. She found Dr. Carter's office tucked away in a corner, surrounded by boxes of alien artifacts and old data crystals. Amy Carter was a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and glasses. She looked up from her work when Elena knocked on the open door. Her desk was covered with ancient stone tablets and metal fragments from various alien civilizations. Ambassador Rodriguez, Amy said with a smile. I heard we had a new diplomat on the station. What brings you to the dusty old research section? Elena stepped into the office and looked around at the collection of artifacts. I was hoping you might be able to help me with something. You study ancient galactic civilizations, right? That's right, Amy said, gesturing for Elena to sit down. I've been researching the history of various species for about 8 years. Now, it's fascinating work, though sometimes frustrating. Frustrating how? Elena asked. Amy picked up one of the stone tablets from her desk. Well, for example, this is from the Altarian civilization. It's about 3,000 years old and talks about their early space exploration. But there's something strange about it and all the other ancient records I've studied. Elena leaned forward. What kind of strange? Every single ancient civilization I've researched has records going back thousands of years, Amy explained. They talk about wars, trade, exploration, all sorts of historical events. But there's always a gap in their records when it comes to one specific region of space. Elena felt her heart beat faster. What region? Amy pulled out a star chart and pointed to an area that Elena recognized immediately. The area that humans now occupy. It's like that entire sector of space was always considered off-limits, even before humans achieved spaceflight. That's impossible, Elena said. Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. How could ancient aliens have records about avoiding our space thousands of years ago? That's exactly what I've been trying to figure out, Amy said. I've found references in at least 12 different ancient languages to something they called the Forbidden Zone or the Watcher's Domain. All of them point to the same area of space. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Have you talked to anyone else about this? Amy looked uncomfortable. I've tried, but every time I bring it up with alien researchers, they change the subject or suddenly remember they have somewhere else. Even the human administrators here seem nervous when I mention it. I've noticed the same thing, Elena said. Yesterday in the council meeting, I asked about exploring beyond human space and everyone went quiet. It was like I had said something forbidden. Amy stood up and walked to a locked cabinet. She pulled out a small device that looked like a scanner. I've been working on something that might help us understand what's going on. This is a deep space signal detector. I've been using it to scan for old transmissions and energy signatures from the region beyond human space. What have you found? Elena asked. That's the strange part, Amy said. I'm not finding anything at all. No radio signals, no energy signatures, nothing. It's like that entire region of space is completely dead. Elena frowned. Dead how? I mean, there's no sign of life, no electromagnetic activity, no star formation, nothing. In a normal region of space, you'd expect to find all sorts of natural phenomena. But this area is just dumpty. Elena looked at the scanner in Amy's hands. Can you show me? Amy activated the device and pointed it toward the wall display. A three-dimensional map appeared, showing their current location and the surrounding star systems. Everything looked normal until Amy adjusted the scanner to look toward the region beyond human space. The map showed a vast area of nothing. No stars, no planets, no energy readings at all. It was as if space itself just stopped existing past the edge of human territory. How is that possible? Elena asked. I don't know, Amy admitted. But I've been getting the same readings for months. Whatever is out there, it's not showing up on any of our sensors. Elena stared at the empty map display. Amy, I think we need to dig deeper into this. There's something going on here that everyone seems to know about except us. Amy nodded. I agree. But we need to be careful. I get the feeling that asking too many questions about this topic could get us into trouble. Elena spent the rest of the day thinking about what Amy had shown her. That evening, she decided to try a different approach. She went to the station's main bar, a place where traders and spacers from all species gathered to relax and share stories. The bar was crowded and noisy, filled with the sounds of a dozen different alien languages. Elena ordered a drink and sat at a table where she could observe the crowd. She was looking for someone who might be willing to talk about things that others wouldn't discuss. After an hour of listening to conversations, Elena noticed a human man sitting alone at the bar. He was older, maybe in his 60s, with gray hair and weathered skin. His clothes suggested he was a spacer, someone who spent most of his time traveling between star systems. Elena approached him carefully. Mind if I sit here? The place is pretty crowded tonight. The man looked up at her and nodded. Sure, go ahead. You're the new ambassador, right? I'm Captain Ryan Murphy. I run cargo between here and the outer colonies. Elena Rodriguez, she said, shaking his hand. How long have you been working in space? About 30 years, Ryan said. I've seen a lot of changes in that time. The galaxy's gotten more crowded, more connected. Elena decided to take a chance. Captain Murphy, can I ask you something? You've been out here a long time. Have you ever wondered what's beyond human space? Ryan's expression immediately changed. He looked around the bar nervously, then leaned closer to Elena. Why are you asking about that? I'm just curious, Elena said. I've noticed that all the maps seem to end at human space and no one wants to talk about what's beyond our borders. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, then he made a decision. Look, Ambassador, there are things that go on out here that new people don't understand. There are topics that we just don't discuss, especially not in places like this. What kind of topics? Elena pressed. Ryan glanced around again, then spoke in a low voice. There's something called the Silence Protocol. It's not an official rule, but everyone follows it. There are certain subjects that are never brought up in mixed company, especially when humans are around. Elena felt her pulse quicken. What subjects? The main one is what you're asking about, Ryan said. What's beyond human space? No alien species will discuss it when humans are present. They'll talk about anything else, but not that. Why not? Elena asked. I don't know the whole story, Ryan admitted, but I've heard whispers over the years. Stories about ancient warnings, about regions of space that are supposed to be avoided. Some of the older traders talk about beacon networks that were set up thousands of years ago, all pointing toward human space with warning messages. Elena stared at him. Warning messages about what? Ryan shook his head. I don't know. But I can tell you this, whatever the reason, it's something that every spacefaring species in the galaxy takes very seriously. The Silence Protocol isn't just about being polite. It's about survival. Elena left the bar that night with more questions than answers. She returned to her quarters and immediately sent a message to Amy Carter. They needed to meet again tomorrow. If there really were ancient warning beacons scattered throughout the galaxy, she was determined to find out what they were warning about. As she prepared for bed, Elena looked out her window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, past the edge of human space, was a mystery that had been kept secret for thousands of years. She was beginning to realize that discovering the truth might be more dangerous than she had imagined. Elena met Amy Carter early the next morning in the research section. Amy had been working all night, and her desk was covered with new data crystals and ancient text translations. I've been thinking about what Captain Murphy told you, Amy said, as Elena sat down. If there really are ancient warning beacons scattered throughout the galaxy, we need to find them. Elena nodded. How do we do that? Amy pulled up a holographic display showing star charts from various alien civilizations. I've been going through my research files looking for any mention of beacon networks or warning systems. I found something interesting. She pointed to several locations on the star map. These are sites where I've found references to what the ancient texts call voice stones or warning lights. They're scattered across different star systems, but they all seem to point in the same direction. Elena studied the pattern. Toward human space. Exactly, Amy said. The problem is that most of these sites are in restricted areas or on planets that are off limits to researchers. But there's one that we might be able to access. Amy highlighted a location on the map. This is an old archaeological site on the edge of Kepler space. It's been abandoned for years, but the records show there's a warning beacon there that's still active. Elena felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. How do we get there? I have a research permit that allows me to visit old sites, Amy said. But we'd need transportation and we'd have to be very careful. If we're caught investigating this, it could cause problems for both of us. Elena thought about the risks. She was a new ambassador, and getting involved in unauthorized research could end her career. But the mystery was eating at her. Let's do it, Amy smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already arranged for a small shuttle. We can leave tonight when the station is less busy. That evening, Elena and Amy made their way to the shuttle bay. The corridors were darker and quieter than during the day, with only maintenance crews and night shift workers moving about. Amy had packed her scanning equipment and translation devices in a small bag. The shuttle was a basic research vessel, designed for short trips to archaeological sites. Amy piloted it herself, navigating through the busy space traffic around the station and then setting course for the Kepler system. The journey took 6 hours. Elena spent most of the time reading through Amy's research files, learning about the various ancient civilizations and their records of the mysterious warning system. The more she read, the more disturbed she became. "Amy," she said as they approached their destination, some of these ancient texts mention something called the Great Silence. What was that? Amy's hands tightened on the shuttle controls. That's one of the most disturbing references I've found. Several different civilizations mention it, but always in very vague terms. It seems to have been some kind of catastrophic event that happened around 50,000 years ago. What kind of event? The records are fragmentary, but they suggest that something happened that was so terrible it affected multiple star systems. The text mentioned the darkness that consumes light and the silence that devours sound. Elena felt a chill. And this happened in the region that humans now occupy? That's what it looks like, Amy said. But the strange thing is that the record suggests this event created some kind of dead zone, an area of space where normal physics doesn't work properly. They arrived at the archaeological site just as the system's sun was setting. The planet below was barren and rocky, with no signs of current life. Amy landed the shuttle near the coordinates she had found in her research files. The beacon site was located in a valley between two mountain ranges. As they approached on foot, Elena could see the structure in the distance. It was a tall crystalline tower that seemed to pulse with a faint blue light. "It's still active after all these years," Amy said in amazement. "The technology that built this must be incredibly advanced." As they got closer, Elena could see that the beacon was covered in symbols and text from various alien languages. The writing seemed to glow with the same blue light as the tower itself. Amy unpacked her translation equipment and began scanning the symbols. "This is incredible. The text is in at least 12 different languages, but they all say the same thing. What do they say?" Elena asked. Amy's voice was shaky as she read from her scanner. "They're warnings. All of them. They say things like, 'Beyond this point lies the domain of the Watchers, and the Guardians sleep here. Do not wake them.' And the Great Silence must not be broken." Elena stared at the beacon. "Watchers? Guardians? What are they talking about?" "I don't know," Amy admitted. "But there's more." The newest layer of text appears to be only a few thousand years old. It says, "The children of the forgotten have returned to their home. Let them serve as the barrier between light and darkness." Elena felt her stomach drop. Children of the forgotten? Could that be referring to humans? Before Amy could answer, they heard the sound of approaching aircraft. Elena looked up to see several shuttles descending toward their location. As the ships landed, she could see that they were human military vessels. Soldiers in combat gear emerged from the shuttles and quickly surrounded Elena and Amy, their leader. A woman with short blonde hair and lieutenant stripes approached them. "Ambassador Rodriguez, Dr. Carter," the woman said. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Lisa Powell. You need to come with us immediately." Elena felt panic rising. "On what authority?" "On the authority of the Department of Galactic Security," Lisa said. "You've been investigating classified information." Amy stepped forward. "We're just doing archaeological research. We have proper permits." Lisa shook her head. "You're investigating information that's been classified for the safety of the entire galaxy. Pack your equipment. We're leaving now." During the flight back to the station, Elena demanded answers. "What's going on? Why is archaeological research suddenly classified?" Lisa looked at Elena for a long moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Because some secrets are too dangerous to let out." You've been asking questions about things that a small group of people have spent thousands of years trying to keep hidden. Hidden from whom? Elena asked. From humanity, Lisa said simply. And from most of the galaxy, Elena stared at her. You're saying that humans in the government know about this? Some of us do, Lisa admitted. The ones who need to know. The ones who have to make sure that certain boundaries are maintained. Amy looked up from her equipment. The beacon we found, it wasn't just a warning, was it? It was marking a boundary. Lisa nodded grimly. That beacon and hundreds of others like it throughout the galaxy. They're all part of an ancient containment system, a quarantine zone that's been maintained for 50,000 years. Elena felt like the world was spinning around her. A quarantine zone for what? For whatever caused the Great Silence, Lisa said. And for the region of space where it happened? The region that humans now call home. Elena's mind raced as she tried to process this information. Are you saying that human space is actually a quarantine zone? I'm saying that human space is at the center of the largest quarantine zone in galactic history, Lisa replied, and that every other species in the galaxy has been working together to make sure that nothing from that zone ever escapes. The shuttle landed at the station, and Lisa's team escorted Elena and Amy to a secure conference room. Elena's head was spinning with questions, but one stood out above all the others. If human space is a quarantine zone, she said, then what exactly are we quarantining? Lisa looked at her with a mix of sympathy and fear. Tomorrow, you're going to meet with people who can answer that question. People who know the whole truth about what humanity really is and why the galactic maps end at human space. Elena sat in the secure room that night, staring at the walls and trying to understand what she had learned. Everything she thought she knew about humanity's place in the galaxy was wrong. They weren't explorers or colonists or even refugees. They were something else entirely, something that required a 50,000-year quarantine to contain Dot, and tomorrow she would finally learn what that something was. Elena spent a sleepless night in the secure room, her mind racing with questions about quarantine zones and ancient warnings. When morning came, Lieutenant Commander Lisa Powell arrived with two other people. One was a tall man in a military uniform with the stars of a high-ranking officer. The other was an alien she had never seen before, tall and thin with pale skin and large black eyes. Ambassador Rodriguez, Lisa said, I'd like you to meet Secretary of Defense Robert Hayes and Galactic Council Representative Zekthara. They're here to explain what you've stumbled into. Elena stood up, trying to maintain her composure. I want to know the truth about what's going on. All of it, Secretary Hayes nodded grimly. That's why we're here. What you've discovered is information that's been kept secret for 50,000 years. The truth about humanity's place in the galaxy and why that place is so carefully guarded? Zekthara stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice had a strange musical quality. Ambassador Rodriguez, what I'm about to tell you may be difficult to believe, but it is the truth that my people and dozens of other species have guarded for millennia. Elena sat back down, bracing herself for what was to come. 50,000 years ago, Zekthara continued, something emerged from the galactic core. We do not know what it was exactly, but it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It consumed entire star systems, leaving behind regions of space, where the laws of physics themselves seemed broken. Secretary Hayes pulled out a holographic projector and activated it. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with a dark region spreading outward from the center. The entity or entities moved through space like a plague, Hayes said. They didn't just destroy planets or civilizations. They seemed to corrupt the very fabric of space-time itself. Stars would go dark, not because they burned out, but because light itself stopped working properly in those regions. Elena stared at the hologram. What does this have to do with humans? Zekthara's large eyes seemed to focus on something far away. The expansion of this corruption lasted for several thousand years. Entire civilizations fled before it, abandoning their home worlds and seeking refuge in the outer regions of the galaxy. But some species were caught in the path of the destruction, including the ancestors of humanity, Secretary Hayes added quietly. Elena felt her world shift. What are you saying? Humans are not from Earth originally, Zekthara explained. Your ancestors were a spacefaring civilization that lived in the region now known as the Dead Zone. When the corruption spread to their systems, they fled just like everyone else? Elena's mind reeled. That's impossible. Human history, our evolution, everything points to Earth being our homeworld. Secretary Hayes nodded. That's what most humans believe, and it's what we've allowed them to believe. But the truth is that your ancestors settled on Earth after fleeing the corruption. Over thousands of years, they lost their advanced technology and forgot their true origins. They rebuilt their civilization from the ground up, starting over as a primitive species. But why keep this secret? Elena asked. Why not tell humanity the truth about their origins? Zekthara and Secretary Hayes exchanged glances. Because of what happened next, Zekthara said. The corruption stopped spreading. It simply stopped at the edges of what is now human space. The entities that had been consuming the galaxy went quiet. We call this event the Great Silence, Elena frowned. So the threat was over? Not over, Secretary Hayes said. Contained. The corruption created a dead zone spanning thousands of light years. Nothing that enters that region ever comes back out. No ships, no signals, nothing? It's as if that entire area of space has been cut off from the rest of the universe. Elena looked at the hologram again, seeing the dark region in a new light. And human space surrounds this dead zone? Human space is the barrier between the dead zone and the rest of the galaxy, Zekthara confirmed. When the other galactic species found humans on Earth, they realized something remarkable. Humans were the only known survivors of the corruption. They had somehow escaped from the dead zone and were thriving on a world at its very edge. Secretary Hayes leaned forward. More importantly, humans showed unusual abilities when exposed to the strange energies that emanated from the dead zone. While these energies were deadly to other species, humans seemed to be naturally resistant to them. Elena felt a chill. You're saying humans are immune to whatever caused the corruption? Not immune, Zekthara said, but adapted. Your ancestors survived in the dead zone long enough to develop resistance to its effects. This makes humanity uniquely suited to serve as guardians of the barrier. Elena stood up and began pacing. So the other galactic species have been using humans as a living shield against whatever is in the dead zone? It's not that simple, Secretary Hayes said. The galactic community made a decision to guide humanity's development carefully. First Contact was managed to keep humans contained within their current territory, while allowing them to believe they were expanding naturally into space. We have been protecting you as much as using you, Zekthara added. Humans were allowed to develop their own civilization and technology, but always within the safe boundaries of the quarantine zone. Elena stopped pacing and stared at them. Safe boundaries? You mean human space is still part of the quarantine zone? The entire region is contaminated, Secretary Hayes admitted. But humans can live there safely because of their genetic adaptations. Other species cannot survive long-term exposure to the area. Elena felt sick. So every human colony, every space station, every ship, we're all living in a contaminated zone? A controlled contaminated zone, Zekthara corrected. The contamination levels in human space are low enough to be safe for your species, but they serve another purpose. They mask the energy signatures from the dead zone itself, making it harder for whatever is in there to sense the outside galaxy. Secretary Hayes activated another display. Elena, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring the dead zone for 50,000 years, watching for any signs of activity. For most of that time, it's been completely silent. But recently, that's begun to change. The new display showed energy readings from deep space monitoring stations. Elena could see that the readings had been stable for decades, but in recent months there had been spikes of activity. Something is stirring in the dead zone, Secretary Hayes said. For the first time in 50,000 years, we're detecting Energy signatures that match the ancient records of the corruption. Elena stared at the readings. What does that mean? It means the Great Silence may be ending, Zekthara said gravely. And if it does, humanity will be the first line of defense against whatever emerges. Elena sat back down, overwhelmed by the enormity of what she had learned. So, humans aren't just living in a quarantine zone. We're guards at the prison. You are the descendants of the only species that ever escaped from the corruption, Secretary Hayes said. That makes you the galaxy's best hope for stopping it if it becomes active again. Elena looked at the energy readings again. How long do we have? We don't know, Zekthara admitted. The activity could continue for years without anything happening. Or it could mean that whatever caused the corruption is beginning to wake up. Elena thought about all the humans living their normal lives, unaware of the truth about their origins or their role in the galaxy. What happens now? Do we tell people the truth? Secretary Hayes shook his head. That's a decision that we'll have to be made very carefully. The knowledge could cause panic, or it could inspire people to prepare for what's coming. What we're asking, Zekthara said, is for you to join the small group of humans who know the truth, to help us prepare for whatever is coming while maintaining the security that has kept the galaxy safe for 50,000 years. Elena looked out the window at the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, past the edge of human space, something ancient and terrible was beginning to stir. And humanity, without knowing it, stood guard between that darkness and the rest of the galaxy. She turned back to the others. If I agreed to this, what exactly would I be agreeing to do? Secretary Hayes smiled grimly. Help us prepare humanity for their true destiny as the guardians of the galaxy, whether they know it or not. Elena stared out the window at the stars for a long time, thinking about everything she had learned. The truth about humanity's origins, their role as guardians, and the ancient threat that might be awakening, it was almost too much to process. But she knew she had to make a decision. If I agree to join this secret group, she finally said, what would happen to Dr. Carter? She knows as much as I do now. Secretary Hayes nodded. Amy would be offered the same choice. Her archaeological knowledge would be valuable to our research efforts. Elena turned back to face them. And if we refuse? Zekthara spoke carefully. You would be relocated to comfortable positions where you could not share what you have learned. But Elena, the galaxy needs people who understand the truth. The signs from the dead zone are becoming stronger, Elena made her decision. I'll do it, but I want to understand exactly what we're preparing for. Secretary Hayes activated the holographic display again, showing the energy readings from the monitoring stations. These signals started appearing 3 months ago. At first, we thought they might be natural phenomena, but the patterns are too regular. Something is definitely active in the dead zone. What kind of something? Elena asked. We don't know, Hayes admitted. But based on the ancient records, we believe it could be the entities that caused the original corruption. If they're becoming active again, we need to be ready. Zekthara added, for 50,000 years, the quarantine has held. But quarantines only work if nothing tries to break out from the inside. Elena felt a chill. You think whatever is in there is trying to escape? The energy patterns suggest movement, Hayes said. Something large is moving through the dead zone, and it's heading toward the boundary with human space. Elena looked at the display showing the approaching energy signatures. How much time do we have? Based on the current rate of movement, we estimate 6 to 8 months before whatever it is reaches the edge of the dead zone, Hayes replied. Elena's mind raced. That's not much time to prepare. What exactly are we preparing for? Zekthara stepped forward. We are hoping that the barrier will hold, that human space will continue to mask the galaxy from detection. But if it does not, we need humans who are ready to face whatever emerges. Face it how? Elena asked. Hayes pulled up another display, showing human colonies and military installations. We've been quietly strengthening defenses in the outer human colonies. We've also been identifying humans who show unusual abilities when exposed to the strange energies from the dead zone. Elena frowned. What kind of abilities? Enhanced reflexes, improved mental focus, resistance to certain types of radiation. Hayes explained. About 1 in every 1,000 humans shows these traits naturally. We've been recruiting them into special military units. Special units for what purpose? To serve as humanity's first line of defense if the barrier fails, Hayes said simply. Humans with these abilities are the only ones who can survive close contact with the corruption. Elena thought about all the humans living normal lives, unaware of the danger approaching them. Shouldn't people know about this? Shouldn't they have a chance to prepare? Zektara's expression was sad. Elena, imagine what would happen if we announced to humanity that they are the descendants of refugees living in a quarantine zone and that an ancient evil is approaching their space. The panic alone could destroy human civilization. But keeping them ignorant means they can't help. Defend themselves, Elena argued. Hayes nodded. That's why we need people like you. People who can help us prepare humanity without causing mass panic. We need to gradually strengthen human capabilities while maintaining social stability. Elena looked at the energy readings again. The signals. We're definitely getting stronger. What about the other galactic species? What are they doing to prepare? They are moving their civilizations further away from human space, Zektara said. Creating additional buffer zones in case the corruption spreads again. Elena felt a surge of anger. So they're abandoning us? Just like they used us as a barrier. Now they're running away and leaving us to face this alone? Not alone, Hayes said firmly. There are aliens who have volunteered to stay and help. Zektara is one of them. But you're right that most species are prioritizing their own survival. Elena took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions. What do you need me to do? Hayes smiled grimly. We need you to continue your diplomatic work, but with a new purpose. Help us identify other humans who might be suitable for our special programs. Look for people with unusual abilities or strong mental resilience. We also need you to help us develop new technologies, Zektara added. Human scientists working with alien researchers who understand the corruption. Your people have natural resistance, but we need to enhance that resistance with technology. Elena thought about Amy Carter. What about archaeological research? Are there more sites like the beacon we found? Hundreds of them, Hayes confirmed. We need teams to study these sites and learn everything we can about the original corruption. Amy's expertise would be invaluable for that work. Elena made another decision. I want to talk to Amy before we proceed. She deserves to know what she's getting into. Hayes nodded. Of course, but Elena, there's something else you should know. The work we're asking you to do won't just be preparation. If our worst fears come true, you and the others who know the truth will be responsible for leading humanity's response to the crisis. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. You're asking me to help prepare for a war that most humans don't even know is coming. We're asking you to help save 2 civilizations, Zektara said. Humanity and the rest. Of the galaxy? Because if the corruption spreads again, it could consume everything. Elena spent the next hour talking with Amy Carter, explaining the choice they both faced. Amy listened in amazement as Elena described the truth about human origins and the approaching threat. So we're not just archaeologists anymore, Amy said when Elena finished. We're guardians of ancient secrets that could determine the fate of the galaxy. Elena nodded. That's about the size of it. Are you willing to take on that responsibility? Amy looked at her research notes spread across the table. I've spent my career studying the past. If there's a chance that my work could help protect the future, then yes, I'm in. Elena felt relief. Having Amy as a partner would make the enormous task ahead seem more manageable. Over the next few weeks, Elena began her new role, she continued. Her diplomatic duties, but now she was also quietly evaluating other humans for their potential to join the secret program. She worked with scientists from multiple species to develop new technologies that could enhance human resistance to the corruption. Most importantly, she helped establish communication networks between the various monitoring stations scattered throughout human space. If something did emerge from the dead zone, they would need to coordinate their response quickly, late at night. Elena would often stand at her window looking out at the stars. She now understood why the galactic maps ended at human space. It wasn't because there was nothing beyond human territory. It was because what lay beyond was too dangerous to acknowledge on official charts. The blank space on those maps represented 50,000 years of vigilance, an ancient quarantine maintained by countless species working together. And now, for the first time since the Great Silence began, that vigil was about to be tested. Elena watched the stars and thought about all the humans living their normal lives throughout the galaxy, unaware that they stood guard between civilization and an ancient darkness. Soon, some of them would learn the truth about their heritage and their destiny. The energy readings from the dead zone continued to grow stronger each day. Whatever was coming, it would arrive soon. And when it did, humanity would face the greatest test in their species' long and forgotten history. Elena touched the window and made a silent promise to all the humans who didn't know they were guardians. Whatever emerged from the darkness beyond their space, they would be ready for it. They had to be, because the alternative was too terrible to imagine.